Well, hello everyone. I hope you all are doing okay with your research so far. Today I'm going to do a tutorial on how to do a literature review. Some of you have done this and some of you have not done this. So the reason why I kind of facilitating it this way is for those of you who just need a refresher, you can kind of go through the video as you need or the presentation. Or those of you who are new to this, you are able to kind of dive into this a little bit further. So what's going to happen in your October meeting is that Ollie is going to go through this briefly, but really take any questions, what the next steps are, and what to really do with this. So if you are still a little confused of what a literature review is, the whole idea behind this is the fact that you are reading various articles and you're compiling it into a paper. And I always say it's like a book report on steroids because essentially you're not necessarily talking about Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3. You're talking about the article or the components within the article and compiling them together. And so I'll have a few examples for you, and I'll kind of go through some of the resources I have. So the first thing is, as some of you are doing, is how to obtain resources or literature to be able to even start this literature review. So your PI or graduate mentor should have been helping you through this process. But this is also a presentation we typically do, at least with our REU program. In the past, we've done it in our UGRS program. But this time we were just going to use the presentation that we've used previously. So if you open this presentation up, it really kind of goes through how to use the NC State Library. As you can see, this is a little bit older, but how you can use the NC State Library to obtain literature, what kind of literature to get. And they kind of go through the resource component of what is a literature review, where to get resources and all that kind of stuff. So if you have questions about this, feel free to reach out. But the whole idea is this helps you find the resources necessary. And that's really not where what I'm going to spend a lot of time doing today. I'm going to really be focusing on like what to find in a literature review. So I want to show this meme because this isn't an easy process, especially if this is your first time. It's really uncomfortable because I'm going to go through and kind of guide you through the process, but there's not a very exact structured process. It's something you kind of have to figure out through experience. But essentially what you see in your literature review are like the main topics of research that come up. So I'm going to go through an example with you by showing it through a mind map today of my research, and then hopefully that'll kind of guide you through what to expect or topics that you may find during your literature review. So your objective is to write a literature review by gaining experience in technical writing, bringing new insight to the topic and relevance to your research. So why people publish literature reviews all the time because research is changing, and the whole idea is to kind of provide a resource that has all the current research of a certain topic area. So your whole idea is to, obviously, this is all about experience. You don't get a grade. We give you feedback, and we just hope you take it to improve it. And I'll talk you through that process a little bit later. But you also kind of have an agenda behind it. So, for instance, the common example I always use is about wideband gap technologies. And so, something that could be a literature review is the current research on wideband gap and where it's going. And so, it's not that you're trying to persuade someone, but you kind of have a purpose of why you're sharing that literature. So the first thing is you need to define your topic and your audience. So it should be something interesting to you, but it also needs to relate with what your project that you're doing currently. So you should have already figured that out with your PI and graduate mentor. If you have not done that, please let me know as soon as possible. It has to be also significant to the field of freedom or power America. And you want it to be researchable because you don't want to have a topic that's so narrow that it's hard for you to find literature. And maybe some of you have already gone through that. If that's kind of what you're finding, you need to broaden your topic a little bit further. So, but you also want to have a topic that is narrow enough that it's not overwhelming. So, for example, if I was doing wide-band gap, I wouldn't want to focus solely on possibly just I'm trying to think of an example now I can come up with off the top of my head, but you don't want it so narrow like it's a certain part of wide-band gap that there's like one article in there. But you don't want to do a whole literature review on power electronics because that you could write a book on that literally. So you're finding a happy medium in between that, and that's something you should kind of work out with your graduate mentor or your PI. But it's also a specific topic or issue. So it's something that is relevant and that people will care about. I'll say for the audience, you are going to envision this like it's your colleagues, someone that maybe has a little bit of a background in power electronics or power systems, but maybe not necessarily an expert in what you're talking about. The second thing, second rule that they always talk about is search and research a topic. So I'm going through and having some kind of paper management system. If you're not so familiar with that, I would definitely recommend figuring out what works for you. Everyone has something different. So the whole idea behind this is that you are keeping track of your articles that you're collecting. So just like maybe you've had to do for papers in the past of references, having some kind of paper management system already in place is really significant. And so for that, like, especially if you're going to graduate school, this is a good habit to start now. I know I haven't started a good habit till about last year, until it became relevant for my dissertation. So the earlier you start, I promise you, the better you will be. And this keeps track of your resources. And this is particularly helpful when you have to go to add the resources you're using for your literature review. Take notes. So everyone has their own approach, which is why, if you notice, I changed to just having a mind map to an outline. You can pick whatever works for you. At the end of the day, this is something that is supposed to help you, not make it more difficult. And so finding your approach to note taking that is helpful, whether that is mind mapping, highlighting, taking notes in a notebook or on a Word document, but keeping track of where the notes are coming from which resource, because when you go to write in your literature review, you're going to have to cite it. So it really is helpful with the content and connecting it to your resource. So I'm not going to really go through this. This rule 4, this is for a reference. The whole idea behind this is that you are basically just talking through the literature you've read. This was more as a resource, as maybe some of you may write a literature review again in your future, or if some of these key terms may come up, but do not worry about rule 4. So if you notice, there was kind of a jump on the slides to this one. I caught an error in my slides, so I just stopped the video. But I'm going to go through, come back to this rule number 5. So for the whole idea that I talked about this before is when you're writing this, it should be focused but a broad interest and keeping it simple. So the example I gave, and I will say this is more to my expertise, but say I was writing a literature review on active learning in electrical engineering or a certain type of teaching. I would not go through and write all the history of electrical engineering and all the history of active learning. I would pick what the history is of that relationship of electrical engineering and active learning. So this would be saying I would be studying the education approaches in electrical engineering. And so you'll notice, because you'll see that could get you really into a rabbit hole, focus on the relationship of the topics if you have multiple topics within it, but making sure it's relevant. So it's really this happy medium. And again, this comes with the experience of kind of figuring out what that actually means. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through this process. Critical and consistent. So meaning that like things that you would put in this, major achievements in the field. So maybe a discovery, an experiment, something that's been a really big change for the topic you're discussing. Areas of debate. So something that's I don't want to say controversial, but something that has been not clear, maybe debatable in the field. Significant research questions is another item. Is understanding what questions or areas of research that is needed for the field. And the biggest one is consistency. And it's so hard because I am guilty of this all the time, is the tense that you are writing in. So I have passive and active. I wouldn't stress about that as much, but there's so many times where I'll see literature reviews, and like I said, I do this too, but you're writing in past tense and current tense, or not current, present tense. You need to be consistent to how you're writing that. And also you're writing in third person. So instead of saying, we discovered that blah, 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 you'll say the research states blah, blah, blah. So you do not want to have any we's, I's, R's, anything like that. Just keep that in mind when you're writing your lit review. So for rule 7, finding a logical structure. So when you're writing this, you want it to be worth the reader's time, which I am sure all of yours will be great. That should be systematic and structured. So you should have it well flowing. The topics should lead into each other. Like, for example, if you have one section that is the background of wide-band gap, you wouldn't have the next section be the future research of wide-band gap. You would have something in between that's talking about the current research or some relevant topics, and future research would be towards the end of the paper. So having some kind of common sense component to it of how it flows. When you're writing, your focus and with a critical lens. So even if you think your topic is the most significant research that is out there right now, you also have to include the limitations or challenges with the research that you're doing currently. So you're providing the information, you're providing background, but you're also discussing some of the current challenges and issues with your research that you're presenting. And as we talked about, recommendations of mind mapping, creating drafts. This is why we're putting in all these steps for you to create a literature review, because it's really challenging. And so, like I said, the more experience you get with this, you'll kind of figure out what works best for you. I'll talk about a couple strategies in a little bit, but you'll kind of get the idea behind it. Feedback and review. So some of you probably will not ask for peer review, even though we always recommend it. But really what we do is when you are done, you are going to send it to me. You will send it to your graduate mentor, and potentially also Ali, depending on the situation. And we all will give you feedback. So my feedback, obviously, since I am not an expert in your area of research, my feedback is more of the lens of, structure. I'm following IEEE format, which we'll talk about at a later date. But being able to give you feedback of someone who has a little bit of knowledge of your research, but not an expert. And then your graduate mentor or your PI will be able to give you, that technical feedback to make sure that what you're discussing is actually accurate. Reread it multiple times. Do not send it in and not give it time to digest. And what I mean by that, some of the time you'll be writing this and you will have looked at this paper so many times that you kind of forget, like, if this is making sense or not. So giving it time after you've written it, wait a day or two to reread it and proofread it, because you'll come back with kind of a fresh perspective and kind of maybe see things that you didn't see before. Be objective in the light of your own research, which I've kind of already talked about already. Enthusiastic and belief of your interest in research. So you should show in your literature review that you do care about this topic, and it's not hard to show that, but it's just showing a general interest in the topic you're doing. It's a methodical review, meaning that you have actually gone through and read the literature and makes sense and it's relevant. All things that we've already talked to. And keeping out of the biases. So like I said before, related to the other rule is, even though you may think your topic is the best topic ever, you want to also make sure that you are presenting it with a non-biased view. So rule 10, which is also another tricky part of this, up to date, but don't forget the past. So basic foundational knowledge is, you can use that. Like the history of it is fine to use from, literature that's 10 years old or so, or 15 years old. But when you're trying to present the most current research, I would say 3 to 5 years old. Especially like if you're trying to find future research trends in your topic area or the current research, no more than 5 years. And that's something kind of, from what my experience has been, the consistent number. Obviously, the most updated articles that you can get, the better. But for instance, like I've used throughout this presentation, Widening Gap. When I've tried to create educational materials, a lot of the current best resources are from like 2015, 2016. So I have to kind of watch it sometimes because I'm kind of getting it to that borderline of almost 5 years. So you have to kind of make that judgment for yourself of, am I providing the latest resources, and but also telling the story. Be observant of the latest papers. Your topic is a research gap, but current research addresses it. So, for example, let's say that you had used a previous resource from we'll say 2008, and you say that this one topic is a current problem. Well, let's say maybe they already have solved the problem in 2014 or 2015, and you didn't find that article. You have to make sure and double check that your literature that you are looking at is the most up to date, and that's why that kind of 5-year rule was in place. So I'm going to go through the process with you a little bit of how to do all this literature. So I'm going to show you my learning management system, which is not very technical, but I think because I'm pretty old school, I'm going to drag this over. So for my dissertation, this is how I've been tracking my resources. So I make up an ID number, I put what year it is, the author, the title. For us, we use APA. You all will be using IEEE. I created keywords, takeaways, and I copy and paste abstract, and I have kind of my own like little system going on. So I'm going to go through with you like how to make a mind map with literature that I've read. And again, I'm doing this very roughly to just so you get an idea. So I'm just going to say I'll have that as a reference. And my topic is research experiences in electrical engineering. And so that is, to give you a little background, that is what I have been researching the last couple of years, is mostly research experience for undergraduate students and how it impacts students of different backgrounds and for future opportunities. So let's say that is my topic. And so like I talked about before, my topic would be on that relationship together. I wouldn't be doing all the history of every research experience or the history of electrical engineering. I am just solely focused on research experiences in electrical engineering. So let's say I read all this. Actually, I'm going to add this in here. I read a lot of articles. For you all, you only need 5. But say I read my 5 articles, and this is what I see that comes up every time, that research experience in electrical engineering is a helpful recruitment for students in graduate school. It helps to increase professional and technical skills. It develops their metacognition, self-efficacy, and cognitive growth, and it increases diversity and inclusiveness. So on all my articles, I'm seeing these as the main topics that repeat. So let's say I go, I'm going to start putting some more facts to support all these other topic areas. So I'm just going to do one of these bubbles, but let's say I want to focus on metacognition, self-efficacy, and cognitive growth. So I'm going to be pulling from my learning management system that I have. So one quote I have is about self-efficacy. So if you don't know what self-efficacy is, it's basically your belief in your ability to do a certain skill. So here is a quote that I'm going to throw in here. It's going to be shrunk. So this is a fact that I found on self-efficacy that supports significant literature. And I am going to put in my ID number that goes along with that quote. But let's say I go to another article and then I have a different quote on self-efficacy. So I'll take that quote and I will put it in here. And you don't have to put quotes in. You can put in topics, anything that you find relevant that'll kind of guide you and support the topic area. This is an article resource number 2. Actually, technically, this is in number 3 of my literature. I'll pull one more. So all this literature or things I'm pulling has to deal with self-efficacy for this. And I could have even just put a broader, why is this still so small? I could have put just a broad thing of self-efficacy is increased in undergraduate research experiences. However, I wanted to do this. But this is just to kind of give you some guidance to how to put together some key facts in your topic area. And then I can put the lines. It's going to let me. There we go. And this kind of gives you an idea. And then when I go to write my paper, I'm going to be using these key quotes to support this section of the paper. And so however you want to do this is up to you. And this just gives you an idea. So like I said, I could have also done a topic area that says self-efficacy is developed greatly in 10-week undergraduate experiences. And maybe I'll just put the sources that I use. 136. However you want to do that. However you want to do that is up to you. Just finding out your way of organizing your thoughts first. I'll say from personal experience, I've gone in and just started writing and it becomes a disaster. So you really just want to have a general game plan before you get started. So that gives you an idea of how to approach a literature review. So when you have your mind map or outline done, this is what we're going to be talking about in the October meeting. So going through and taking all this information and putting it into a literature review. Ollie's going to be talking this through with you of IEEE format, what the title of a paper, the abstract, and some of these key components of IEEE and how to put it all together and what content to put in. And so kind of the next steps. So if you have questions, please, at this point, I think, don't hesitate to reach out. Bring an outline or mind map or your notes with you to the session. You obviously bring your laptop. In the November meeting, you're going to be creating a draft, and it's going to be 5 pages. Ollie will also go through this with you, but to kind of go through this, it's going to be 5 pages. You need at least 5 references. It'll be in IEEE format. You're going to pick a topic that relates to your current research. You are going to submit a final copy of this for December. And so please keep this in mind. If we don't get your literature review, a payment may be held for your spring semester. So make sure that you are completing what is expected from you, as this is part of your contract or your agreement. So the recommendations, select a topic that is broad, and discuss this with your PI and graduate mentors. We've already talked about this. You'll start this after you've met with Ali. I have resources in here, but I'm also, don't stress about going through this quite yet. I just want you to see where this is going. And so I hope you all are looking at my emails coming. I am doing this now. But to this current week, you should be working on finalizing and reading on your notes. I'm sending you this letter tutorial this week, actually a week early. In October 14th to 18th, we're going to be starting to talk about putting it together. So Just keep in mind of all these deadlines coming up. It really creeps up fast. Do not put this off or it's going to be miserable for you. And you really should look to put together a good draft by November. I'll say probably mid-November. Just keep in mind Thanksgiving is that last week. So most likely it'll be the week of like the 20th, 23rd. I forget what that week looks like. Just plan accordingly. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me or Ali, and we look forward to helping you with the next step.